You are earning just enough to remain useful, exhausted enough to remain obedient, and busy enough to mistake motion for progress. The month ends, the money disappears, and the next raise is treated as rescue. Yet the real problem is not that you began with nothing, it is that you were trained to protect a small position instead of using it as a starting point. The comfortable belief says wealth begins with money. First earn more, then save, then wait for opportunity. That sequence sounds responsible because it keeps you predictable. It turns your time into income, your income into bills, and your ambition into patience. You remain manageable while believing you are being prudent. Machiavelli understood the power belongs to those who read conditions accurately and act before others recognize the change. He observed that a weak position is not defeated merely because it is weak, but because its occupant refuses to calculate, adapt, and seize advantage when it appears. Starting with nothing removes comfort. It also removes the illusion that permission is required. Poverty is not a prison. It is an unguarded position. These 10 laws will expose how disciplined people convert time into skill, skill into leverage, and leverage into assets that no longer depend entirely on their hours. Not through fantasy, not through a lucky break, through decisions that make your present position serve a larger design. You will see why working harder can keep you poor when the effort is sold cheaply, why saving without a strategy can become another form of surrender, and why connections are often built after value is demonstrated rather than before. Each law is available before wealth arrives. That is the point. Most people need favorable conditions before they move. You are listening because you are willing to move while conditions are unfavorable. If these ideas make your current habits feel exposed, do not rush to soften them. Discomfort is evidence that the old rules are losing control, so begin with the first law. Defend the position before trying to expand it. Most people treat every hour as available for sale. They answer every message, accept every interruption, and call exhaustion evidence of commitment. The strategic few protect attention as if it were an asset because it is the first asset available to anyone with no money. A worker opens a laptop to complete one important task. 10 minutes later, a notification pulls attention toward a short argument, then a video, then an unnecessary reply. The evening ends with movement everywhere and progress nowhere. Nothing was stolen from the bank account. Something more valuable was taken from the future. The same pattern appears in smaller, quieter forms. A person promises to study after dinner, then spends the first 20 minutes choosing the perfect lesson. Another keeps a paper beside the keyboard, writes the single result that must exist before the session ends, and begins before motivation arrives. The first protects a feeling. The second protects a block of time. After a month, one has a collection of intentions. The other has work that can be examined, improved, and shown. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who cannot defend his position cannot hold a larger one. The same applies here. Guard the hours that produce skill, proof, or income. Reduce the hours that merely soothe anxiety. Not every opportunity deserves access. Not every request deserves access. Not every request deserves obedience. Not every habit deserves protection because it feels familiar. Create a small perimeter. Put the phone outside it. Tell the people who depend on you when the door is closed. Set one beginning and one ending for the work. If the boundary fails, repair it without turning one broken day into a broken identity. Strategic discipline is not a performance of perfection. It is the repeated return to what matters. Most people spend their energy proving they are available. You must spend it becoming difficult to replace. Attention is the first fortress. If this feels severe, that sting is useful. It reveals how much of the day belongs to the game instead of to you. Discomfort is not always a warning to retreat. Sometimes it is the sensation of discovering that an old arrangement benefited everyone except the person living inside it. But defense alone creates only a protected small position. The next law determines whether that position can be read accurately. Law 2. Inventory the battlefield without insulting your starting point. Most people look at having no capital, no connections, and no advantage, then turn those facts into an identity. The strategic few treat them as conditions. They write down what is present, what is missing, and what can be converted first. Imagine two people beginning with the same empty account and the same ordinary job. One spends 10 years waiting for the right break, repeating that wealthy people had better beginnings. The other measures available hours, learns a useful process, documents small results, and steadily moves toward work that pays for judgment rather than mere attendance. 10 years later, one has the same explanation. The other has evidence, bargaining power, and options. Neither began with an advantage. One began with a ledger. Now place them in the same cramped week. Both work late. Both have a family obligation. Both feel the pressure of an unexpected bill. The first says the week is impossible and spends the remaining energy defending that conclusion. The second identifies 2 hours that can be protected, one expense that can be delayed, one skill that can be practiced during existing work, and one person who might evaluate the result. The second person is not less tired. The difference is not less tired. The difference is that tiredness becomes information instead of a verdict. Take a plain sheet. List skills that solve expensive problems. List people who can verify the quality of that work. List recurring tasks that could be made faster, clearer, or more reliable. Then list the leaks, debt payments, impulsive purchases, unpaid favors, and hours surrendered to distraction. Separate facts from accusations. No savings is a fact, no future is an accusation, no useful contact yet is a fact, no one will ever care is an untested prediction. Most people blur these categories until emotion appears to be evidence. The strategic few keep the ledger clean enough to make a move. Most people ask, what do people like me get? The strategic few ask, what can this position produce next? Poverty becomes more dangerous when it is described emotionally instead of measured strategically. Your circumstances are data, not a verdict. The battlefield becomes usable only after it is named, and once the position is clear, the next danger appears, confusing activity with a skill the market can recognize. Law 3. Build 1 weapon before collecting 10 tools. Most people gather information. They watch tutorials, save articles, buy courses, and speak about plans. The strategic few practice one valuable capability until another person can see its result and trust it. Choose a skill connected to a real outcome. Clearer writing, better sales conversations, reliable analysis, efficient systems, precise design, or another ability that saves time or creates revenue for someone else. Practice it in public or in a portfolio. Produce samples. Ask for criticism. Improve the same narrow edge until proof begins to accumulate. There is a difference between learning about a tool and becoming dangerous with it in a useful, ethical sense. A person can own 10 books on communication and still fail to make a confusing idea clear. Another can study one structure, use it in 10 real situations, record what changed, and become the person others call when the message must land. Most people collect possibilities. The strategic few collect repetitions. A person with no connections can still create a before and after document, a cleaner process, a useful report, or a small result for a real operator. That proof travels farther than a claim. The first asset is not confidence. It is evidence. At the beginning, the work may feel embarrassingly small. 1 page, 1 corrected process, 1 careful analysis, 1 conversation improved. That discomfort is a growth signal because the work is leaving the safety of imagination. Do not confuse a small arena with a small future. A narrow proof can become a wide reputation when the result is real. Most people want to appear broadly capable before becoming specifically useful. The strategic few become useful in a narrow lane, then let usefulness widen the road. Machiavelli observed that power grows when ability is made visible at the moment. Conditions demand it. Hidden competence earns admiration only in the imagination. Do not ask whether a skill feels impressive. Ask whether it changes an outcome. A skill without proof is a private hope. Now, the pressure shifts. A capable person can still remain poor by renting out every hour at the lowest rate available. The next law is where effort begins to gain margin. Law 4. Stop selling effort. Sell a changed condition. Most people describe what they do. Hours worked, tasks completed, messages answered. The strategic few describe what becomes better because they worked. They reduce confusion, shorten a process, prevent a loss, increase qualified attention, or make a decision easier. At a kitchen table, someone spends an entire evening preparing a report that nobody can quickly understand. Another person spends less time, reorganizes the information, highlights the decision, and removes the delay. The first sells labor. The second sells movement. The difference is not moral superiority. It is how value is perceived. A small business owner receives 2 offers. One says, "I will spend 15 hours organizing your files." The other says, "I will make the files searchable, identify the missing records, and leave a process your staff can repeat." The hours may be similar, the meaning is not. One asks to be paid for being occupied. The other accepts responsibility for a condition after the work is complete. Do not manipulate fear or desire in others. Recognize those triggers in yourself and refuse to be played by them. Build value that remains defensible when the emotion fades. A result that saves an hour, protects a relationship, or prevents repeated error can be priced by its consequence rather than by the sweat required to create it. Before accepting a task, ask what will be different when it is finished. If the answer is unclear, clarify the outcome. If the outcome cannot be measured, identify the decision it will support. If no meaningful condition changes, the task may be motion disguised as service. Most people say, "This took 6 hours." The strategic few say, "This removed 6 hours from the problem." One reports exertion. The other reveals leverage. Your income rises when the problem shrinks, not merely when your exhaustion grows. The market rarely rewards pain directly. It rewards the distance between a problem and its resolution. That distance can be widened by the 5th law. Law 5. Apply the scarcity to leverage rule. Most people use scarce resources to survive the week. The strategic few use them to build something that makes the next week less dependent on scarcity. The rule is simple. Every limited resource must be assigned to defense, capability, or leverage before it is consumed by comfort. The resources may be money, time, attention, trust, or access. If money is limited, it can protect basic stability or support a capability that produces proof. If time is limited, it can be reserved for a high-value skill instead of scattered across low-value obligations. If trust is limited, it can be spent on promises that create durable credibility, not on pleasing everyone. Picture 2 people receiving the same unexpected surplus. One spends it immediately to imitate a life that still cannot be maintained. The other uses part of it to remove a recurring obstacle, part to protect a basic reserve, and part to create a result that can be shown to someone who controls better opportunities. The first experiences a brief change in appearance. The second changes the structure of the next month. This does not mean reckless sacrifice. It means refusing to let every spare resource vanish without leaving an asset behind. A small surplus can purchase time. Time can produce skill. Skill can produce proof. Proof can produce better terms. Better terms can create a larger surplus. Comfort is not the enemy. Unexamined consumption is. Rest that restores capacity serves the long game. Spending that exists only to display belonging serves someone else's design. The strategic question is not whether a resource may be enjoyed, it is whether enjoyment is consuming the very margin that could make future enjoyment less fragile. Most people consume the first sign of breathing room. The strategic few convert breathing room into distance. The scarcity to leverage rule. Spend less of today to buy more control over tomorrow. If this challenges the way comfort is normally defended, good. Growth often feels like deprivation before it feels like freedom. The first refusal may feel petty. The first protected hour may feel antisocial. The first unspent surplus may feel pointless. That discomfort is a growth signal when it proves that an automatic pattern has been interrupted. But leverage cannot remain private. A useful capability must enter a wider field where opportunity can find it. Law 6. Create access by becoming referable. Most people try to collect contacts before creating reasons for anyone to remember them. The strategic few make their usefulness easy to describe, easy to verify, and easy to pass along. A person attends a gathering, speaks to 5 strangers, and leaves with 5 names in a phone. Nothing changes because no one knows what to send that person. Another attends with a clear offer, a process improved, a problem studied, a sample prepared. A small result follows. The second person may collect fewer contacts, but the contacts have a reason to reopen the conversation. Imagine a delayed train, a crowded platform, and 2 workers discussing the same operational problem. One complains fluently, offers opinions, and asks to be introduced to influential people. The other listens, writes down the repeated bottleneck, and sends a concise improvement the next morning. No grand pitch is required. The useful observation becomes a bridge. A month later, the second worker is remembered not because of charm, but because the conversation produced something that could be used. Connections are not trophies. They are pathways built by repeated value. Share a useful observation, send a concise improvement, keep a promise when no applause follows. Ask precise questions instead of performing importance. The goal is not to exploit anyone's anxiety or ambition. The goal is to become trusted around outcomes. Do not chase proximity to impressive people while remaining indistinct. Become clear enough that a person can explain your usefulness in 1 sentence. This is the person who turns complicated reports into decisions, travels better than "this person is ambitious." Specific value creates a trail. Most people network as if proximity creates opportunity. The strategic few create value that travels through proximity. Be memorable for a result, not for a performance. Machiavelli warned in essence that loyalty is more stable when it is anchored in demonstrated benefit than in ceremony. Trust earned through dependable action has more staying power than charm. Once access begins to open, the danger is spending every new gain immediately. Law 7. Turn increased income into an expanding margin. Most people receive more and immediately enlarge the lifestyle around the new number. The strategic few keep the old life stable long enough for the difference to become strategic. They do not confuse a higher inflow with wealth. When income improves, the first question should not be what can be bought now. It should be what dependency can be removed. A painful bill, an unstable arrangement, or a low-value obligation may be reduced. A reserve may buy the ability to reject bad terms. Time may be recovered for the capability that created the improvement. The difference becomes visible at the moment of temptation. 2 people receive a better payment for the same month of work. One immediately adds obligations that require the payment to continue forever. The other waits, studies where the pressure is coming from, and uses the difference to make one future refusal possible. Months later, the first has a larger life to defend. The second has a stronger position from which to choose. This is not financial advice about particular assets. It is a discipline of preserving optionality. Wealth begins to appear when every increase does not become a new requirement. The surplus becomes a wall between your judgment and desperation. A margin also changes conversation. It lets you decline a dishonest arrangement without panic. It lets you wait before answering a demand. It lets you repair a mistake without immediately surrendering your standards. Most people see unused capacity and call it waste. The strategic few recognize capacity as protection. Most people use higher income to look successful. The strategic few use it to become harder to corner. One buys signals, the other buys room. A margin is not money left idle. It is decision-making power stored for the next move. Once a margin exists, offense becomes possible, but offense without protection turns a gain into another vulnerability. Law 8. Make your value portable. Most people build their entire economic life inside one employer, one platform, one relationship, or one source of approval. The strategic few convert experience into portable proof, repeatable processes, and abilities that survive a change in scenery. Keep records of outcomes. Build a body of work. Document the method that produced the result. Learn how to explain the value without depending on a single gatekeeper to translate it. Portability does not require abandoning stability. It means stability is no longer confused with dependence. Consider the person praised at work but unable to show what was accomplished outside the manager's memory. Consider the person with fewer compliments but a clear portfolio, documented process, and several ways to apply the same capability. One has a reputation trapped in a room. The other carries proof through the market. A portable system can be as simple as a record of problems solved, decisions improved, time saved, and lessons learned. It can include templates, explanations, examples, and a method another person can understand. The point is not to manufacture an image. The point is to make the truth of your contribution less dependent on one witness. Machiavelli observed that a force is safer when it can operate under changing conditions. Your earning power deserves the same design. Do not build a castle whose only door is controlled by someone else. What survives when the title disappears? The question is uncomfortable because titles provide borrowed certainty. Remove the title, the familiar desk, or the approving manager, and the underlying capability is exposed. If that capability is real, exposure becomes an opportunity to redeploy it. If it is weak, the evidence tells you what to strengthen. Portable value turns uncertainty from a command into a variable. Yet even portable value can be captured by a single mistake, which brings the next law into view. Law 9. Protect the gains before displaying them. Most people announce progress early, spend to make it visible, and expose every new plan to opinions that have not earned influence. The strategic few protect fragile gains until they become structurally real. Do not turn a small improvement into a public identity that must be defended. Do not reveal every negotiation, every reserve, or every developing project. Keep promises, but do not confuse transparency with total exposure. The system rewards visible consumption because visible consumption keeps people working to maintain appearances. A person receives the first meaningful result from a new skill and tells everyone before the process is reliable. Praise arrives, expectations rise, and the person begins performing success instead of improving the work. Another keeps the result quiet, tests it repeatedly, gathers evidence, and lets the outcome speak when it can withstand examination. Most people seek recognition at the fragile stage. The strategic few protect the stage where recognition becomes durable. Use the scarcity to leverage rule again here. Protect the resources that create future choice before spending them to create present approval. A reserve is quiet. A skill is quiet. A disciplined relationship is quiet. Their power comes from what they permit, not from what they announce. Protection does not mean hiding from useful criticism. It means choosing critics who understand the work and can improve it, rather than inviting every spectator to vote on a structure still being built. The few guard the workshop without pretending the workshop is finished. Most people display the harvest before planting deeper roots. The strategic few let roots thicken before inviting attention. Privacy is not secrecy for deception. It is shelter for construction. Ask yourself, what part of the current plan needs applause before it has produced proof? Name it in 1 or 2 words, then remove it from the audience. Protection creates time. Time allows the final law, because real wealth is not merely the ability to earn more. It is the ability to remain capable when conditions change. Law 10. Build a system that keeps producing the person who can rebuild. Most people chase a final number, believing wealth will end uncertainty forever. The strategic few build identity around judgment, discipline, adaptability, and repeatable creation. They do not merely accumulate assets, they become the kind of person who can recognize an opening, protect a margin, and construct value again. Automate what can be automated. Document what must be repeated. Teach the method to the future version of yourself. Keep learning after the first success, because yesterday's advantage can become today's trap. Let money serve independence, not vanity. Let influence serve durable work, not applause. A person with no inheritance can still leave behind a system, useful knowledge, disciplined habits, reliable processes, and resources arranged to outlast a mood. Another person may earn more but leave only consumption and dependence. One possesses things, the other has become a source. The source is not a fantasy of being invulnerable. It is the ordinary capacity to begin again with clearer judgment. When a plan fails, the system records the failure. When a condition changes, the process adapts. When praise disappears, the standard remains. Most people need the environment to confirm who they are. The strategic few carry an identity strong enough to keep producing under a different environment. Machiavelli understood that temporary fortune favors the prepared, but lasting power belongs to those who can adapt when fortune changes. That is the final distinction. Wealth is not only what remains in an account, it is the capacity that remains when the account is tested. Do not build a life that merely looks successful. Build one that can survive success, loss, delay, and change. The highest asset is the person who can create assets again. This was only the visible edge of the map. The deeper territory is now in front of you, and most people will hear these laws, nod at the uncomfortable parts, and change nothing. Beneath this video waits virtue, the Machiavelli doctrine, not a lecture, not a motivational speech, and not another video, but the full cold system behind this way of thinking. 3 30-day campaigns called Gold for money, Crown for the people around you, and Iron for the mind that rules both. You choose which territory to take first. Tap the pinned comment. The rules the powerful never say out loud are waiting there. Subscribe to Machiavelli's gold frequency is an act of refusing to remain among those who recognize the map but never move across it. The final question is not whether circumstances will improve. It is whether you become the person who keeps waiting for permission, or the person who turns an empty position into permanent power.